Regular scheduled meeting for Thursday, February 16th, 2012. Please rise for flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Sunshine Law. Adequate notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act by mailing the schedule of the Township Committee to the Express Times and North Star Ledger newspaper, posting a copy on the Township Bulletin Board, and filing a copy of the Township Clerk.
Roll call, please.
Perez.
Here.
Siegel. Here. Miliani. Here. Valori.
Here.
Toriello.
Here. Can I have a motion to open up for public comment?
Make motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye. Anyone who wishes to make public comment, please step up to the podium. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Teresa Pfefferly, 806 North Boulevard Alpha. I'm calling here to speak with you about, in regards to the Recreation Committee. I believe that they are an arm of your council. And I know this seems silly, but I'm just going to present anyway. My son went and did the swimming program through Greenwich last year, which I believe was the first year that was available. This past December, received an email from the coach, Coach Herdline, who notified us like on the 10th or 11th that if we didn't sign up by the 15th, we'd pay a late fee. I didn't think anything of it. I flagged it and said, I'll pay a late fee, I don't care. 2 weeks to Christmas, I don't have time to worry about it. In January, I went back to the email, printed out the forms, filled them out, emailed her, said, where do I send the forms to? She said, go on the website. Went on the website, there was no sign up. So I emailed through like a request on the website. You can email someone. I said, I'm trying to sign up for swimming. My son played last year. I have the forms. I can send you the forms, but there's also supposedly a late fee. It doesn't say anything about a late fee. And the response I got was, sign-ups were for 45 days. They ended December 31st. I'm sorry, you can no longer sign up. Swimming doesn't start till March. So I was a little concerned that it seems unrealistic to me. I used to sit on the AYAA. I know that our mission was for the children, and we would take kids up until the time the program started unless there was a head count issue. So I emailed back the person who was in charge of that, or who responded to me. Brian Felder, Commissioner. And I said, can we please discuss this further? My reasons for wanting to discuss it were the fact that I was not notified that there was a drop-dead deadline, that the coach did not even know there was a deadline, that I lived in Alpha, I didn't live in Greenwich. I don't know if the notifications are different, but did Alpha receive a notification? Because I saw nothing. And can we please further discuss this? And I got zero response. So I came here to bring it to your attention. I feel that in good faith, being a business person, I know I'm a broker. Our rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's the golden rule. In all fairness and good faith, I don't think that they upheld their end of the bargain in communicating properly, even to their coaches, if the coach was not aware, and my son is being penalized for that. If there was a surplus of swimming programs around that fit our needs, I would just move on. But the next program is somewhere in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and it's a lot more rigorous than a recreational program. So I thought it warranted that I come here and bring this to your attention.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment? Seeing no hands, is there a motion to close public comment?
Make that motion.
All those in favor? Aye. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to postpone the adoption of regular minutes and executive session minutes until the regularly scheduled March meeting. I got a second on that? Any comment? All those, roll call?
Is there a reason for it, or?
They're not ready.
Oh, okay.
Not in the packet.
Okay.
Roll call.
Okay. Perez,
Okay, yes.
Siegel,
Yeah.
Emiliani.
Yes.
Valari.
Yes.
Torriello.
Yes. Is there, let me just see this. Is there a motion to approve, do we have any monthly reports? I didn't see.
The court is in there and the police
Oh,
are
I
in
saw the
there.
court, okay. I'm looking at the tax collector, I did see the court and the police. So is there, do I have a motion to approve the reports?
For the court and the police?
Yeah,
Just the court and the police?
that's all I saw, yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve the court and the police. That's what we have in book.
Yeah, that was all that was submitted.
I'll second.
Roll call,
Discussion?
roll call.
Perez,
Yes.
Siegel,
Yes.
Emiliani,
Yes.
Valari.
Yes.
Torriello.
Yes. I think at this time, while we're talking about receiving reports, I received an email today and disseminated to the Township Committee a memo from our auditor, Bob Morrison. Everybody should have a copy of that. What's that?
Does everybody have one? I made some extra copies.
You haven't, I can print that out.
I just-
Why don't you, if you can, make.
Yeah, I printed out everything that was
Okay.
on that email from you, Joe, as well.
I printed mine out. Kind of time.
Everybody has a copy? Yeah, okay. As many of you know, at our reorganization meeting, this new township committee announced its commitment to implementing needed change to bring about transparency. In recent weeks, we've begun this much-needed process and have made changes both in personnel and with township professionals. Several of those changes involve replacing a CFO who had resigned with a shared services agreement with Alpha, and as well as bringing in a new auditor, Robert Morrison. This township committee unanimously voted to replace the auditor, as well as to fill the position of CFO with Lorraine Rossetti, who has made it to his first meeting tonight. So everyone, Lorraine Rossetti, we're glad to have you. Both the CFO and the auditor have spent much time in reviewing our financial records. And our CFO has spent many weekends in clearing a significant backlog of purchase orders, filing, implementing sound financial practices, and training staff on basics such as the proper use of purchasing software so that funds are appropriately encumbered. Additionally, Robert Morrison has spent the last several weeks, and according to his memo, in excess of 75 hours to audit our financial records in order to submit a required annual financial statement to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. This filing is supposed to be filed by February 10th, and I just want to say, unfortunately, we were not able to file that report, and Mr. Morrison is going to speak in a few minutes. While accounting can be very confusing, but financial statements and records are critical to the operation, whether it's a public or private entity. Financial records are used for both internal and external purposes. They can be used for strategic planning, to set goals, and most importantly, They reflect the financial condition or the financial health of an organization, and in this case, our municipality. Unfortunately, Mr. Morrison's recent review was not favorable, and he shared with the Township Committee some preliminary concerns that has prevented him from actually assessing completely our financial health, and as I've already indicated, precluded him from filing the required annual financial statements. Mr. Morrison has asked to address this Township Committee tonight to share some of his preliminary findings. While this information that is set forth in Mr. Morrison's report is unsettling, to say the least, it is my sincere belief that it is important for this Township Committee to convey to the residents of Greenwich that we understand the severity of his findings and we are committed to addressing them with corrective action as quickly as possible, including implementing procedures and controls to ensure that Greenwich residents are never placed in this situation of facing what appears to be gross financial mismanagement. Again, I only wish, it's my hope that, that Mr. Morrison's findings are the result of, as his report said, and I quote, abject neglect of the prior financial administration, and that it is that the lack of financial protocols was not undertaken to mask defalcation or misappropriation of funds. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Morrison to address the committee and the residents of Greenwich. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the committee. The financial statement preparation process generally involves either the chief financial officer or the auditor coming in and preparing it's a roughly 75-page document required by the state of New Jersey that is a recapitulation of the township's financial condition and the results of its operations for the year that ended. That information is most easily abstracted from the general ledger records of the township. I was involved with the state of New Jersey in developing the required financial statement course that financial officers have to take now to become certified. I've taught the financial statement preparation course. I was one of the first instructors of it, and I annually give a seminar for financial officers on financial statement preparation, incorporating any changes in the law that have occurred since the prior year. The focus of all of the training and all of my lecturing is always on general ledger maintenance, because that is the document that is the most important document. It is the summary of your financial condition. It is the proof of all of the entries made into the books of original entry. What we found when we came in is essentially that the general ledger has not been maintained for a multi-year period. The accounting systems that the township uses automatically feed cash receipts and disbursements transactions from those modules of your system into the general ledger system. The entries that are required to be made into the general ledger system are journal entries to reflect significant township transactions, such as adoptions of budgets, setting of tax levies, changes, cancellations of taxes, added taxes, and various proofs of transactional activity, budget amendments, etc. In the course of, and I mentioned this in the memo, in the course of a given year, if a CFO is proving the general ledger out, meaning taxes proved to the tax module, budgets proved to the budget modules, there's several hundred journal entries that are required to be made. In 2011, there were only 2 journal entries made in this general ledger, and
For an entire year.
for an entire year, and neither one was complete. So essentially, there is no general ledger. There is a summary, a double entry summary of receipts and disbursements being maintained, and the spreadsheet that I attached to the email was included just to give you some idea of the discrepancies that exist in that general ledger, and that was the beginning balances. Since no entries were made during the year, the ending balances are further from what we believe the ending balances should be. However, I did want to give you the ending balances because we have not concluded our procedures and balanced all funds at this point. We haven't looked at payroll yet, and we haven't looked at the sewer operating fund. We plan on doing that within the next several days, and hopefully, by the end of next week, we will have a financial statement, assuming that the CFO and I can get a chance to review everything, because one of the things I have to point out is I'm not going to make any decisions regarding adding things to the record or deleting things or changing things because I cannot keep your records for you. As your auditor, I have to be independent, so what we are doing is we're taking an approach where we're looking for omissions. When we find something that we believe is omitted, we dig up the information that's necessary, propose adjusting entries. So there's going to be a laundry list of adjusting entries that we're going to be giving to Lorraine sometime next week to review. I'll sit down with her. It'll probably take the better part of the day. We'll go through them. If she agrees, they'll get entered. If she doesn't agree, we'll talk. And at the conclusion of that process, we will then have balances that are the representations of the township that we can include in an annual financial statement. So we're hoping that that process will be done by the end of the week, end of next week. The process got a little more complicated because the cash reconciliation process, which is a monthly proof of cash activity in each of the township's bank accounts, stopped abruptly in 2011. The current fund, the largest account, which is your general operating account, wasn't reconciled after September 30th. Most of the other accounts were not reconciled after October 31st. So we attempted to perform that reconciliation based upon the entries that were made in the accounting systems, checking in recorded deposits against the bank statement, checking in checks issued against checks cleared, and developing an outstanding checklist. We found that in the course of this endeavor, numerous deposits that haven't been posted to the books that show up on the bank statements. We have some entries on the bank statements, and some entries on the books that don't show up on the bank statements, which have us a little puzzled. And there were also some charges for NSF checks that weren't backed out of existing cash receipts postings. So they're going to have some impact on tax and revenue balances when we identify what they are and the appropriate adjusting entries are made. But this has complicated the cash reconciliation process. In addition, one of the things I noted, and it caused me additional difficulty in the reconciliation process, is that when deposits are being made, we noted that they weren't being entered into the accounting records on a timely basis. At the end of each month, there was a catch-all entry being made that would reflect somewhere between 5 and 30 deposits made throughout the month prior, all being made on the last day of the month. So we're trying to check off deposits, and we're assuming that the record is chronological. So the first deposit on the bank statement should be the first entry in the accounting records, the second should be the second, et cetera, et cetera. What we're finding is the first entry on the deposit on the bank statement might be the last entry in the accounting records if it didn't get caught until the end of the month. And that makes life more difficult because some of the departments are constantly making $25, $30, $40, $50 deposits, and you often have several of those deposits hanging out at the end of the month, and you're not sure which one is which and which one should be checked in. We'll be able to fight through those. We've already fought through that process and come up with after everything was said and done, there was roughly about $78,000 worth of unrecorded cash receipts and a little over $1,000 of unrecorded cash disbursements. We've identified a couple of them because they were wire transfers from the state of New Jersey. We're able to match those up against a state aid payment schedule, leaving us roughly $40,000 of cash receipts unidentified at this point that the CFO and I will have to pull the deposit tickets and go through and see what they were for and post a summary adjusting entry to the financial record.
So if I understand you, last year, Greenwich taxpayers paid a financial department to do work that wasn't done, that we now have to have recreated.
Yeah, we're exactly right. The CFO and I are doing work that normally would have been done and waiting for me when I walked in to prepare the AFS.
Can I ask a question here? You know, could you provide a little more detail on what that means? The tax records weren't kept right.
We haven't had a problem with the tax records.
Well, that was a question that the mayor just asked.
No, I think what the mayor asked was whether or not the taxpayers were paying for services that weren't performed.
That was my question.
Okay, so what, I guess my question is then, what services weren't performed?
General ledger maintenance, cash receipt and disbursement record maintenance, cash reconciliations for the last 2 or 3 months of the year.
And we didn't have a CFO since the end of November, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I think it's important to recognize that. I haven't heard that mentioned
Well-
in your readout.
Actually, what I thought you said was that the general ledger wasn't maintained at all for the entirety of 2011.
That's absolutely true.
And I thought I also heard you say that there were generally ledger entries that number the hundreds on a monthly basis. And for the entirety of 2011, there were only 2, and that they were done incorrectly.
That's correct.
Do all municipalities have general ledgers?
General ledgers are required to be maintained by the state of New Jersey. It was a directive of the director of the Division of Local Government Services years and years ago. About 10 years ago, the state deemed it important enough that they incorporated it into the New Jersey Administrative Code.
So every township, every municipality has general ledgers that are maintained?
Every municipality is required to maintain one.
In your experience, how many?
I've never walked into a town that had a general ledger in this bad a shape.
Okay, so then,
And by the way, how long have you been doing this?
Too long. I know, I've been an auditor for 35 years now.
So then, in other words, the report that we're seeing tonight is pretty much questioning the credibility of the last audit group that we had here. Mr. Swisher, is that correct?
Actually, Mr. Swisher has recommendations in his report that you could read to include, to state that the records are not being maintained properly. I am making a bigger deal about it, if you want to put it that way, because this is the crucial record for financial reporting purposes, for proof of financial activity. It's a record that should be self-balancing, which this isn't. It should be prepared and proved monthly, which this isn't. And it should include all of the financial information of the township, which it doesn't. And it's not even close. I mean, I can tell you that I have walked into new clients where sincere efforts to keep a general ledger were made, but it wasn't done properly. In those situations, I try to work with the people who are keeping the general ledger to point out the deficiencies and show them how to do it properly. I've taught the course. I helped design the course. So I have a pretty good idea what it takes to keep the records, to put together a general ledger and a financial statement.
Well, I appreciate your report, and I guess I would just make a statement. As you know, well, as the committee knows, we received this email a few hours before this meeting. And I thought at the last meeting, we talked that there would be no walk-ons. And this clearly was a walk-on. When I work until 7 o'clock at night, I don't have time to get into a detailed report. So I'm a little bit surprised that we have a walk-on when we just discussed it at the last meeting. At your request that there would be no walk-ons. And this is a walk-on.
This was received today. Mr. Morrison was here. Given the urgency of the matter, I hope you would appreciate the urgency of this. We have a financial crisis here in terms of what appears to be gross mismanagement. We are up against deadlines with the state, and we need to undertake immediate corrective action, not only to get our fiscal house in order, but I think to ensure we owe it to the residents of Greenwich to make sure that we are implementing protocols to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And in fact, you know, I'm a little bit surprised, and it sounds like residents of Greenwich have been paying employees in the financial department to do certain tasks that what I'm hearing is not that they were necessarily done incorrectly, but not done at all. And what it sounds to me like is that we have certain obligations in terms of getting an audit done that we can't get done because certain information wasn't done that you need to have done in order to move forward. And that work has to be recreated.
Mr. Morris, one more question. I guess I just need to understand, last year, and I thought this has a lot to do with financial controls and processes, we were, in 2011, the township received a bond rating of a AA plus. How does the town receive that with having such gross mismanagement of financial matters?
Having been involved in more bond ratings than I can count during my career, I can tell you that the single most important factor in a bond rating is the demographic information regarding the residents of the township, specifically household income, per capita income, et cetera, compared also to tax burden. So while stability of management and competency of management are factors in a rating, a badly run town with a lot of wealthy people living in it will get a much higher rating than a well-run town with a bunch of poor people living in it every time.
And were our financials run well last year? Was our financial department run well last year?
From what I'm seeing in 2011, the most significant and important financial record that was required to be maintained was not.
And by the way, just to clarify, this isn't your final report by any stretch. This is just what you've prepared based upon.
The reason let me clarify. So the reason I prepared this report is because the annual financial statement will be a week overdue tomorrow, and I contacted the Division of Local Government Services today and notified them, and I felt an obligation to notify the mayor and committee of the same facts and circumstances that I informed the division of earlier today.
So you notified the division?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Today of this matter?
Yes.
On behalf of Greenwich Township?
Yes.
So then is this serious
Thank you.
enough that something would be, that there would be concern about the CFO, there'd be charges against the CFO?
What my conversation with the division was that I would give them a more detailed report of my findings when we file the AFS. There's actually a sheet within the annual financial statement, sheet 1A, where the auditor preparing the financial statement lists anything that he has encountered during the course of the AFS preparation that requires the attention of the division. And they have published a list of items that they believe are worthy of inclusion, and I will address those issues.
So you normally wouldn't report back to the committee at the time that your audit was completed? That this is not uncommon?
Well,
You just report out prematurely?
This was done simply because we didn't meet the deadline and because I felt an obligation to talk to the state today, and I didn't want the township committee not to be aware of what I was telling the state. And this is not the audit. Right now, this process involves aggregating the financial transactional data and getting it to balance for the year. Once we have the financial statements in proof, we will then start the audit process on them. So right now, we're not looking to see if transactions have been properly authorized, charged to the right places for the right amounts, et cetera. Right now, we're just trying to get debits to equal credits.
I'm going to ask one critical question. We've had a conversation with Lorraine, our new CFO. Please tell me that she is in line with your thinking as we move forward with our new CFO, and this is the same, as we move forward, this is a good relationship that we will be able to, we know that we can count on, this is the actual way things are supposed to be done appropriately.
I am very comfortable with Lorraine's representations that what we find here, we wouldn't find in Alpha, and that she is dedicated to working to get this corrected.
Thank you.
And I'm willing to spend whatever time it takes with her. Not that I think she's going to need a lot of help, but I will do whatever it takes to help her in that endeavor.
Thank you.
Hey Bob, if you put forth like a critical path for us to follow in order to get this remedy?
We're a little premature on that because we haven't finished getting the books in proof. But we can start that process sometime after we get, again, we should have the books improved by next week. And at that point, we can start looking at what went wrong that caused the records to be in the condition they were in, and the best way to make the corrections. We're also going to be looking as part of the audit process, when that gets started, at the internal controls over each class of transactions, right? Smaller towns with limited workforces often face control issues, and you have to use your employees, judiciously to get the maximum amount of segregation of duties and overlap of responsibilities on transactions, so that one person can't control an entire group of transactions, because that's usually when bad things happen.
Can you comment a little bit on paragraph 3 of your report? I don't believe we touched upon that in the discussion. I should say memo, not report.
Yes. We have a difference in the beginning balance in the current fund cash. The audit report is showing $100,000 more than the CFO's January bank reconciliation for 2011 started with. And since the reconciliations, starting with a lower number, essentially worked through September, and we didn't see a $100,000 item coming in that could have been misreported as a receipt when it was a deposit in transit, we don't believe that the checking account reconciliation prepared by the CFO or the treasurer, I'm not sure who was doing it, but we don't believe the township prepared bank reconciliation is wrong. What we're hoping is that there's another explanation. There's another bank account with $100,000 in it, or something along those lines. Well, that's what we're hoping for. We've gotten a communication back from our predecessor auditor. I'm not sure what he's saying. He's promised to call Lorraine tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have it resolved in the morning. If this isn't resolved, this will be another memo. But this is something we hope to have resolved, because if that $100,000 isn't there, your surplus will go down $100,000, and we don't think you're in such good shape for that.
No,
No,
it's
we're not.
there, because I spoke with Mr. Swisher this evening.
Okay, good.
So you had time to read the report and to
Well, I actually
respond to
did it,
right?
I actually did it in the car on the way home
Okay.
at 7:30. Before coming here.
Anything else that you wish to add?
Not unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Dan? Elaine?
No, I'd like to thank Bob.
Tom?
No, thank you very much for
Tina,
doing
do
all
you have
the
any
work.
more questions?
No,
for
I'm
Mr. Swisher?
good, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, she does. You want to do that now? We could take it. Lorraine, you want to address the committee, right? With a
Oh, yeah, I have my own
report?
report.
Okay.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, for the first month that I've been here, I tried to focus on 3 rather large undertakings. One of them being the purchasing system, the second, the escrow accounts, and payroll. Rec has been hanging out there, and I've tried to do what I can with that, but that's my next month agenda. I see them in the back there, hopefully.
There's a lot of smiles in the back,
Pitchforks and torches back
You brought the
there.
whole team today.
We like being recognized.
I did make a little progress on that front, but definitely not enough. Just to add to a little of what Bob had brought up, the old system of purchasing really wasn't followed. You had a really great requisition system, but it wasn't functioning the way that it should. In theory, one person entered the requisition, the user department entered the requisition, the treasurer gave the primary approval, the administrator gave a secondary approval, and then it bounced back to finance for a third round, and the purchase order was finally made
I don't know where it went from there. I haven't been able to ascertain that, but I have made one small change that I hope is relatively significant. The module for the requisition system from your Edmunds package was about $965. So I did speak to committee woman Giuliani. Is that?
That's
I'm
fine.
getting used to all the right
You can
phrases
say
here.
Elaine.
Okay. I spoke to Elaine, and she said it was okay to nix that part of the module. So you'll save $965. We have a paper requisition. It has all sorts of information on there. It has something I didn't see before, the amounts to authorize for written quotes, for formal quotes. It has a vendor certification on it. It has 3 spaces for vendors. So when they do go out for quotes, everything is attached to one document. It has the approval space for the administrator to approve the actual purchase. And then it comes to finance where the funds are certified and the purchase order goes out directly. So hopefully that will expedite every purchase, recreation included, so that things go a lot faster. There won't be 3 bounces back and forth. It'll just be one stop at the administrator and right to finance and right out the door. So hopefully that will expedite a lot of the purchasing and the payment process as well.
And this module wasn't being used. Is this the one that wasn't being used?
It was being used, but it wasn't being used right. Some user
Effectively.
departments were bringing them into the treasurer, and she was entering the requisition. Instead of saving time for the user department doing it, the treasurer was keying it all in and then putting the first approval.
Oh, so
and-
not the department head. That's right, that's how you explain it.
So it wasn't, it could have been a very effective system. I'm sure Jersey City has something like that and it works phenomenally, but it's a little overkill for what the needs are here, and being that it wasn't used effectively, efficiently, there's no reason to really have it.
Okay. And that's $965 a month?
Oh, no, sorry.
A year.
For the whole year.
A year.
Yeah, it would have been
Wish
a
we
little
were
more
saying
exciting
that.
with that.
Yeah, I wish we were saying that.
So again, hopefully just that one small change. I did speak with the user departments first to make sure that they were okay with that. I didn't want to create any additional work for anyone. I was most concerned about DPW and police because they seem to be the heavy purchasers in every municipality. And they seem to be on board with it. It works very well. I haven't had any complaints on it so far. In the future, maybe after the first quarter has been survived through, I'd like to actually pen a formal purchasing policy. I haven't been able to find one. I don't know if there is one. I haven't had a chance to ask him. But I'd like to pen a formal purchasing policy and have you guys review it. If it's acceptable, then adopt it by resolution so that everyone's aware, everyone's on board with the same flow, the same payment of claims. Everything would be detailed in there. For the escrow accounts, does anybody want to guess how many escrow accounts there were?
101.
You just kind of cheated.
I've looked at it.
I was going to say it too.
There were 101 escrow accounts, some of them with balances as low as 22 cents. The escrow statement is about this thick. Crazy. There's 56 accounts in there that had absolutely no activity for 2011. And there were 31 accounts that are just have a brief description as Greenwich performance. So I'll have to talk with the new planning board secretary to see if maybe she can help me research some of them. I'm hoping that some of them are old as well, but I did create, and I think the planning board attorney gave me the okay on the release form. I'd like to start getting some of those 56 accounts released and out of here so that there's a lot less to look at each month. Those, of course, after all 3 professionals from your zoning land use board sign off on them, they'll come to the governing body in resolution form to actually release them. The same things for the performance. I don't know if they're performance bonds or guarantees. I'm not quite sure what they are, but if I can get additional description on those, then we can get those out as well if they're being completed.
Mr. Finelli can help you as well.
well,
He's a wealth of information.
Yeah, the new CFO's, the new planning board secretary is newer than you, so
Yeah.
she's
One
really
person
gonna be,
knows.
exactly, so
Okay,
please
so you
feel
can come
free.
hang out
Yeah,
Saturday.
and I've done this with previous
Oh, Mike,
CFOs.
Saturday, bring the
Yeah,
dog.
I Saturday, so I'm sure I could at least talk a little,
That's
but
on you.
please.
One of the things that has been a source of frustration is the escrow accounts were not maintained in the admin system. There was no separate general ledger for them. They were grouped in with other trusts, I think it was called, and there's a lot going on in the other trust account. So I did get the approval from the auditor to separate out In the past 2 weeks, I created a whole new general ledger for the escrow account, so they'll have their own separate status. I will order computer checks because there's a heck of a lot of activity in the escrow accounts. It's too many checks to write by hand. For payroll, wow, it's quite an undertaking. I'm used to having just one form for one employee for a 2-week period, and I haven't had police for a while, so that was a little bit of a shock. But just for one officer, there were 8 pieces of paperwork for one 2-week pay period, and I couldn't believe the payroll folder is this thick. Just trying to stuff that in Joe's bin for approval is quite an undertaking. It's a lot of duplicate documentation. So,
How many employees do we have in total?
honestly, I have no idea. Can you give me a figure of 36? I think. But,
Employees? And well, some is the full-time and then some are the part-time
Yeah.
ones. And then some of the
So I'd
like
say
monthly ones.
between 30 to 50 tops. It's taken me quite a bit to get used to the payroll system because I've only worked with one before. I can't say I'm real hot for it. It doesn't have a final test. There's no final verification that I can get my hands on that tells me, you know, pay, I don't know, salaried employee John Joe was going to receive this pay and this is the deductions and this is the net pay. There's nothing that gives me that confirmation. So I had asked R&L if they can create additional documents, and we're kind of working on that now. But I did draft a version of a 2-week timesheet to at least eliminate a couple of pieces of paperwork in the pay process. I did review that with the police chief and DPW and court, and of course Kim, and it seems to be a relatively good thing. I'm going to prepare them myself for a while just to make sure that everything that needs to be on there is on there. But the first payroll that I did, there were at least 15 Post-it notes with everyone's leave balances written on there. And I thought maybe that wasn't a really good way to track leave balances when someone took a sick or vacation day. So I have it on the timesheet now. Hopefully that'll be a big improvement. But again, I'm going to prepare them myself for at least the next month just to make sure that everything is there before I ask anyone to drop anything on that. Some of the, just real quick, I'm sorry, I'm not taking a lot of time. A couple of changes that I would like to make is the salary resolution. I did go over this with the auditor as well. I'd like to redo the entire salary resolution and list the every single position that has any kind of compensation associated with it. The employee's name, maybe even a user department, so that everyone knows what budget code that's going to be paid out of, just to make it a little bit more detailed. The one now just has, you have the ordinance where it sets the range, but the resolution has most of the positions and some of the salaries, and it's just not really complete. So I'd like to revamp that. I had looked into the beginnings of a legal agreement with PNC that the committee would have to approve, of course, and that the state would have to approve to authorize PNC to accept tax and sewer payments. I thought that would be a service to offer after hours and weekend service to people that want to transact payments instead of the drop box out here, which is great. They could actually go to the bank and pay cash, and I don't want cash in my office. One of the things that Alpha had just started that Greenwich may be interested in is we now have online payments on our website for tax and sewer. Just another way to give your residents another option for payments, make it easier for them. There is a small convenience fee, but the Edmunds system does offer a module for both tax and sewer payments. They can make the payments online. They could use a credit card. Just something that you may want to consider. It's I believe it's a $600 fee for each of those modules. So I've eaten up the $900 I saved you on.
But it's still under. It's still under. We're still 300 on the positive side.
It
So.
goes out.
One of the things also that would offer, it would give your residents a chance to look up all of their history, all of their past sewer bills, tax bills. When they do their taxes, they want to see how much they paid instead of calling in here and getting voicemail or no one or me going, hello? Because I don't know if I answered the phone right. They could just look it up online. All the information is there. One other undertaking that I would really like to do is to completely revamp the way that Edmunds is set up. Some of the budget accounts don't go to the right general ledger, they're not linked right. And the revenue, a lot of the accounts are linked to the same general ledger account. I don't know if that's easy to understand or not, but it's not set up right, so it's not really user-friendly. So I'd like to take several hours and just completely redo that whole system. And then the budget conversation that we had, are you going to bring that up, Tim?
Unless, yeah, I mean,
Can I, are you finished?
Well, I have one
Okay.
more thing. I've been holding up an Oprah request that the administrator gave me. Not intentionally, but I just got access today for the pensions online system. You guys named me, when you named me your finance officer, I think it was an automatic appointment as your certifying officer for pensions. But it takes a while to get all of the paperwork in place through the state. And they finally realized today that I wasn't kidding when I said I can't do the rocks because I can't get onto the system. So a really, really nice man spent an hour and 23 minutes on the phone with me while all of the reports were done, the payments were made, and I can see everything. So I did print out most of the information for the Oprah request, but it's behind and it's completely my doing. I'm sorry.
It sounds like a tremendous amount of work has been done in, what, a month?
Yeah.
5 weeks, something
I
like
can
that?
give you a number of days and hours, but I won't.
So it sounds like a lot of improvements, and that's great. Since the tax collector isn't here, how are we, who's collecting the tax payments? And who's making those?
Physically?
Yeah, and what's the official, and how are those tax payments getting recorded? Because I hear a lot of improvement, but I'd like to understand how we're collecting our tax payments right now.
The physical payments, the ones that are brought in here to the building, are being received by the finance office and held for the tax collector, your licensed tax collector.
And then what does he do with it?
He prepares the deposits, he takes
Does he
them
do
to
that
bank.
here?
I'm not sure where he does that. I'm not physically in the building enough to see where he actually is when he does them. I know he's in here frequently, but I don't know where he physically prepares.
So, and what's the official tax record, do we know? Is that,
Right now.
because I understood that he's now back to his manual book again as far as the tax payments?
I think that he does have a blank set to start his manual. I printed out a 452-page report to give him all the activity from last year, as well as January through February 1st activity. I don't know if he's had a chance to update that all manually, but the admin system, Mary Ann has been entering the payments. What's been happening is the tax collector is making deposits, physically making the deposits, bringing in, after he does his manual recording of it, brings the deposit slip with all the stubs in, and I'm not quite sure what Mary Ann's title is, but Mary Ann is then entering all the payments into admins.
And it was your recommendation that both sets of books be run, because we wanted to make sure that everything ties out, because they weren't run together when it first turned over.
Right, I think it was kind of a jumbled start. It went from manual record keeping right into the computer, and I think the manual record keeping was stopped at that point. I've checked with a couple of tax collectors, because I'm not a tax collector, I'm definitely not an authority on that. And it seems common practice to run both sets of books in tandem for at least a year. Now that the computer's been up and going for a year, I can't see.
I have some concerns because if the official record is the manual book, right, then if someone's delinquent on their taxes, those payments that are being applied to their current quarter taxes, there'd be no way, if the two aren't speaking to one another as far as the system and the manual logging, there's no way that a resident would be charged interest or delinquent fees as a result of, because no one's going to know where it's going to be charged to the current bill.
That's a determination that the committee will have to make, which you want to be the official record, whether you want it to be your licensed person doing the manual or your non-licensed person doing the computer. That's a discussion that you all have to have and
because I think that's probably the
advise
most
them.
significant dollars coming into the town, right?
Definitely.
Is the tax dollars. So
Definitely.
I would think that would be one of the big focuses, that we want to make sure that that's the process that's really tidied up and working well.
But complete the statement you were in the middle of, that we were not running two books to make sure that both of them, that the computer was doing the right computer entries.
Well, the auditor last year recommended that we not run 2 sets of books.
Well, maybe the auditor may have not been,
Credible?
it has been discussed and with other tax collectors, and when switching over to an automated system, that both sets of books be run. And it has been discussed with several tax collectors that this is how they do it. So we are having that done right now, just to make sure that we are collecting the same amount of monies and making sure that our books are similar.
Well, we could be losing significant amount of monies if we're not assessing delinquent taxes.
We are assessing the delinquent taxes, that's not the issue. The issue is making sure that the entries are done appropriately.
Did we do that the
And
first year?
making
when
sure, no, we didn't.
We kept manual and electronic?
No, we didn't.
for a
I
year?
think the first year it was kind of an abrupt transfer
We
from.
stopped manual, went to
Right,
automatic.
went right to.
Exactly. And you know how things are when you go to a computer system from a manual system, for
Well,
accounts receivable.
well, most process improvements, Elaine, you move to computerized systems versus moving back to manual systems.
No,
So-
not moving back to manual systems, running them together so that you can prove out. It's totally different, Tanya.
There will be monthly proofing. There are many discussions that go on throughout the week with any kind of differences that there may be between the computer copy and the manual copy, but I haven't seen the manual record, so I don't know.
Well, I just want to make one comment. I know that when I requested to get to review time cards, I was told that I couldn't take the originals out of the building, copies needed to be made. However, cash and checks are leaving this building before it goes to the bank.
What are you
Recorded.
talking about?
Lane, I'm not getting into anything, I just want to
What,
put that on
I don't
record.
know what kind of reference that is. What, you're making a statement and you don't have any hard, what kind of reference are you making?
What kind of cash and records are in the building?
I'm
I'd
talking
like
about
to know.
I'm talking about
Well,
tax
you're
payments.
gonna have to make a statement.
Well, I believe the tax collector is taking the payments to his home.
don't know that.
To do the deposits.
No, he's doing them here. So I don't know where you're getting your information from.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to
No,
add?
that's all.
You done, Larry?
That was everything I had, thanks.
I would just like to, based upon a conversation that I had with Lorraine today, and in light of the information, the preliminary information that we've received from the auditor, and with, I guess, the time of year that it is, I would like a motion to be made for all departments to freeze all discretionary spending, and that we limit purchasing only to immediately necessary items at this point in time, to allow us to get caught up with both the fine work that you've been doing, Lorraine, and I thank you for that, and as well as when we can get a better handle in the next several weeks as to where we're at. As well as, and I guess I have two motions, we can start with that one, if someone would make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll make the motion with one small exception.
Okay.
And it's only because I know rec is in the back. And I know they take their fees in and they, they're kind of concerned about freezing anything, and they take fees in and they spend and, discretionary spending. I don't want them to think that this means that they can't spend any money.
Okay.
Because they behave in a little different manner.
Okay.
Is there
Not agree.
any spending that's done, should have liaison approval?
We're gonna get, well, I think that, and that's what Lorraine is working through in terms of getting that new protocol, but yes, and I think that some of
We'll
it,
talk about that
we
later.
could talk about that
It was supposed to be on
later.
the agenda.
Yeah.
It didn't make it here, but we're going to talk about that in a little
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, it's something that has to be addressed, but I think conceptually, I'd like to start with at least, and I guess maybe you've made a motion, you've made the motion, but Elaine has requested, so I will withdraw the original motion.
That would be fine, you don't have a second on the motion.
Right, so I
you can
withdraw it, and
yes.
then make a new motion that we limit purchasing only to immediately necessary items for all departments with the exception of rec.
I'll make make the motion.
And is that, anyone second it? Does anybody want to comment on that? Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Miliani?
Yes.
Valari?
Yes.
Toriello?
Yes. And also, I would like to make a motion to have the administrator direct all department heads to prepare their budgets and have them submitted by year end. Well, they would like that, by month end, and with the following proviso. In light of where we are financially, I think each department, I would like to be directed to make cuts as they deem appropriate. I want to give them an opportunity to assess their own budgets, since they know where there might be an opportunity to provide a reduction, that they submit to us by end of month their proposed budget, which will necessarily include reductions where they deem fit. We will then be able, as a committee, to review that and hopefully see if collaboratively we've been able to achieve our desired result in terms of, bridging our deficit. And if not, at least we'll know where we're at and what additional steps the committee needs to make.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any comment? Roll call.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes.
Miliani?
Yes.
Valari?
Yes.
Toriello?
Yes. Thank you, Maureen. We kind of jumped a little bit out of order. I just want to go back to item 7 for payments of bills and claims. Before we make that motion, and I'm looking at council, I should be removing these first?
If there's a bill that you want to remove from the bill list, you should make a motion to approve the bills with the exception of whatever bill it is that you want.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve the bills on the bill list with the following 3 bills removed. Those are bills from Dorf and Dorf, dated December 20th, January 27th, and January 23rd.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comment?
So we're not going to pay for services that were rendered?
You can make a motion if you'd like. I can't support paying these bills. I'm making a motion to have them removed. So no, I don't believe that the payment of these bills are appropriate, which is why I'm requesting that they be removed.
Just as a point of clarification, the motion that you have on the table is to pay all the bills on the bill list with the exception of the 3 bills you mentioned. This is not a motion not to pay those bills. It's a motion to pay all the other bills. That's what's before you right now.
Right.
You would need to make a separate motion.
I will do that.
You're in discussion.
Any other comments? Roll call?
Does that open us up to anything?
Yeah, we could discuss it on.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, does that open us up to any legal action or anything like that?
A second motion, Mike, not this motion.
Okay.
The present motion is just to pay all the bills other than those 3.
Right, correct.
So we're pulling those 3 out of the bill list.
That's,
To be dealt with separately.
and you're authorizing the payment of all the other bills.
Correct.
Need a second?
I made the motion.
I'll second.
It's already been, it's already, right.
Oh, Thompson, I didn't hear you.
Correct, you're still in discussion.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Perez?
Yes.
Siegel?
No.
Miliani?
Yes.
Valari?
Yes.
Toriello?
Yes.
Well, now you have the outstanding Dorf bills.
Would like to make a motion not to pay these bills. Much of the time on these bills is for January of this year, and I believe they're unauthorized, and there are charges prior to that I have looked at that I am uncomfortable with and think that they are excessive, and I am not comfortable authorizing them, so I would.
Could we see them?
Sure.
Then you're abstaining.
So this is December.
Mhm.
So why would we not be paying December's bill? If it was still the council.
I've explained to you, I'm uncomfortable with that. If you'd like to make a motion to pay them, I will not, I'm uncomfortable in authorizing those payments.
So in your opinion, do you believe this is, I would go back to Dan's question, do you believe this is going to create an issue for the township?
In terms of what? In terms of,
liability.
in terms of a fee arbitration,
Yeah.
I believe that that's possible. I do believe that that's possible. Having said that, I want nothing, I will not have my name associated with those bills.
When was he informed he's not the township attorney?
January
January
1.
Well, he was never the township attorney.
I meant I'm sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
labor attorney. The labor attorney,
On
sorry.
January,
Sorry.
on January 1, he was not appointed, there was no appointment made. So he knew on January 1 that the township committee had not made a decision. He made a subsequent appointment sometime in January.
Right, because
So,
you
Joe,
said
is
we
there a
weren't
way
gonna
of
make a decision
separating-
until
Right.
that.
That's right. So it was, I don't remember the date. It was.
Yeah. So he was
it April 2.
responding, so we had our labor attorney that was responding to court requests, right? He was handling a case where there were requests coming in, I don't know what you call them.
Mhm.
So he was responding to that, and we're saying that for those requests where he was actually providing a service, we're not going to pay him.
I'm telling you just my opinion. I've looked at the bills. I'm uncomfortable. I see charges in there that I don't think are appropriate, and I'm not going to authorize it. If you would like to make a motion to have the bills paid and it carries, then we can proceed that way. I'm fine with that, if you'd like to do that.
Did you discuss those with him, Joe?
I have not discussed it with him. I have not had a conversation. No.
Why wouldn't we have a conversation first before we do this?
I'm sorry, was that?
Why wouldn't we have a conversation first before we do this?
Because I'm not comfortable in paying it. I mean, I don't, you know what I'm saying? So.
I understand that, but my only concern is that if he was still working for the township and we're looking not to pay him, what does that open us to? You said that there may be some type of arbitration. or
There's a
something
fee
like that.
arbitration, that's correct. That would be the
Would
remedy.
that cost us anything?
Potentially, yeah.
Would it cost us more than what we would have to pay him?
Probably with his bills. Probably not.
Would you, I mean, you're in this field, would you expect someone to call you if they weren't gonna pay your bill? And have a discussion?
I had a discussion with him about the January bills, but I haven't had a discussion with him about the ones prior to January 1st. I've seen things, because I didn't have those in front of me. I've looked at the bills, and I have a problem with it, so I cannot in good conscience vote for them. That's all. It's just, it's a comfort level I don't have. If
So
you're comfortable.
who's going to have the conversation with them to tell them that we're not gonna pay his bills?
Well, first of all, we haven't had a motion yet, so right now a conversation would be premature. If we make a decision that we're not gonna pay the bills, I'll be happy to pick up the phone and call him. If you make a motion to pay the bill,